G'day, I'm David G, Sheshnag Yoga Center. What on earth is Kundalini? This video is about some of the things that I do. Just thought that I'd share some of my vulnerability and some of my realness. You know, I just wanted to get it out there that I do certain things. First thing I do is I know shit. How do I know it? I don't know how I know it. I just know because that's what my incarnation's about. To be aligned with Gyan Yoga and be able to intuitively perceive the etheric dimensions of the human framework in regards to anatomy and how it functions and how it's all connected. So there is a quote that says something like, yours is not to question why, but mine is. I always question why and how it happens. So I just know stuff. I'm a father, which is one of the best experiences, and I don't think I'd be alive if I wasn't a father. So I have shared care of my children, which is a beautiful experience, and I'm really blessed to have them in my life. I live in a property in Tasmania, and I've built a temple dedicated to the Sanskrit alphabet in the south of Tasmania. It's got a beautiful view and it's got 5 acres, and that's slowly coming along. I've also got a genetic and environmental experience of addiction, and it's been, whether it's been pot, knowledge, sex, victim mindset, chocolate. It's within me runs the program of addiction. Which is just one of the programs I run. There's many programs and that's one. I have a great ability to confront pain, confront discomfort. What I have a great inability for is to cope with criticism. I have questionable self-worth issues that inhibit me from being fully expressive and fully accepting of myself, and in that I actually choose to hide in the shadows and withdraw myself, which doesn't always work or in my favour in a healthy way, but that's what I do. I've got a pain inside of me that sees myself as being too selfish or too indulgent in the past, which has allowed people to become uncomfortable with me and see me as selfish. Sometimes I have confidence and determination to get what I want, but in that I can be perceived as selfishly consumptive. So I work half-time and I have my children every second week. I really like to do mundane jobs sometimes, like painting. I always like to do the dishwashing. I like to do the vacuuming, and one of my great pleasures is sewing on a sewing machine. I give freely of what I can afford, and most of that doesn't have to do with money, because one of the programs I run is to do with the poverty mentality. Even though I'm in the process of shifting that a little bit, there's a part of me that is working in the economic paradigm and balancing finances relative to the program I run, relative to the expenditures and the income and the assets I want to build, all that sort of stuff. So trying to live what they call a normal life, which is just average, like middle 67% of life function in this way, so it's average, and then they call it normal. So I try and function in that. My life's dedicated to the Sanskrit alphabet, and the vibration that I see represents our direct connection to the divine through the etheric body of the human framework. I've investigated most philosophies and religions and realised that if you look at it anatomically, it's exactly the same experiencing happening everywhere throughout the world, and it's interpreted according to cultural, individual beliefs and represented in the language of that place where it happens. But ultimately, I understand that as an individual soul, there's an experience that unifies you with the universal soul, and people call that universal soul God. And I've aligned myself with the Sanskrit philosophy because that seems more like the science of the soul for me. I also have this hope underlying it all. I don't know whether it's a cultural thing because you see people as famous or having made it or whatever. I have a hope in me that to gain exposure, but in that exposure be of service to the two things that are most important to me, and that most important one is called Sanatana Dharma, which means the eternal purpose of the human being. I want to be acknowledged in my understanding of Kundalini and Kundalini awakenings, so I can step up into a more public domain, so I can be able to talk about this subject and how the experience of the universal being, if it happens in this culture, is commonly misunderstood, and there's a lot of people that have ended up being medicated because of the experience and lack of common knowledge in regards to the experience of spiritual illumination. So I really love to be able to step up a little bit more into the public and represent the knowledge of Kundalini in a way that is anatomical, real and genuine, and comes from someone who's experienced that unification with the divine and then struggled through it to be able to come back to some semblance of functional human life. So I really love also the opportunity to be invited to talk on some of those webinars these days. They seem like they're a dime a dozen, but there's a whole lot of people being interviewed on certain subjects, and I sort of crave that. I want to be the Kundalini kid. Anyway, there's some of the things that I do. Share the world, sheshnag.com. Peace. Om Namah Shivaya, Har Har Mahadev.